Well, that is just an awesome, awesome theme song. Perfect for a countdown. 30 days till the Iowa caucuses. You're watching Inside Numbers with Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them. And then, of course, if you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit the notification bell. That'll let you know when we're going to go live. You don't have to do that on Rumble, and you don't have to do that on Locals, where, of course, it's the best place to follow us. peoplespundit.locals.com. Even if you're watching on YouTube, it'd be great if you would mosey on over to Rumble, sign up, subscribe, like the video. It really does help with everything we're doing here. And then, of course, numbers. It's all about the numbers. Speaking of which, like I said, we have roughly 30 days, 30 and a half days, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to, close to it, a little bit over 30 days until the Iowa caucus. Not looking good for anyone not named Donald Trump. Let's just get real. The idea that there's going to be a massive change with 30 days, 12 hours, and 55 minutes and 50 seconds left to go is a little bit hard for me to swallow, considering it has never happened before. Never. All right. There's a few other things I want to talk about real quick. Big Data Poll will be conducting the poll for America Fest for Turning Point. Booyah. Just got that confirmation right before the show. That's always cool. We're going to make some real big splashes with it. We have some really cool questions. We're going to get the grassroots. What do they want to see out of a vice presidential pick? Who's the pick in their mind? We're going to get some real awesome questions coming. Of course, the Christmas poll is launching this weekend. The Christmas poll, it is getting big. So what we're going to do is take everyone had some really great suggestions on Locals. You'll know the ones we do. What do you, when you observe or celebrate Christmas, are you doing it because you celebrate it as the birth of Christ, or is it more just a tradition for you, right? And then, of course, we're going to do fake or real, colored or white, or clear/clear, or both, right? What's your favorite pattern? I do love, we did the movie thing last year, and I do love that idea. We can't do favorite songs. There are just too many. We would have to ask everybody to write in, which we could release as a word cloud. That was the idea I was kind of kicking around in my head. When all is said and done, I may drop the generic ballad. I don't want to, but we're talking, you guys know how I feel about ridiculously long polls that not everybody has a chance or the time to take or the willingness to take. I feel that that is a really big deal, and we could skew our numbers with high interest voters like a lot of other pollsters I'm seeing have already done. We're already, if you include demographics, we're already in the 40s when it comes to question length. Now, remember, that's not true really with everybody, because that includes about 5 or 6 questions that are lean questions. So it's only going to be from people who choose undecided on various things. So that includes all of the logic that's built into the poll. If somebody says A or B, they'll be redirected to another one. All right. Also, David Giglio will join us here in about a half an hour or so to talk about the ridiculousness out in California 20 that I had a meltdown over on Wednesday. There's a lot of fake MAGA. I think that the establishment, Kevin McCarthy, is going to be a problem. All right. I'm just telling Republican voters this. He's not going to go away and concede defeat, concede that, he just failed in 22. So his majority wasn't big enough to give him enough leeway. He's bitter and he's going to make an issue. All right. So just everyone is, here's the thing with Republicans. They whine and cry a lot about how their congressmen and women screw them over and their senators screw them over. Well, at some point, Republican voters are going to have to stop being duped by money in down ballot contests. They got the presidential race figured out. In 15 and 16, the normal playbook, the Murdoch playbook, the Wall Street playbook, it just didn't work. And this time around, some crazy stuff occurred, and it looks like Trump is running away with this thing. We're going to look at another Iowa poll in a second here. Don't see them applying that yet uniformly down ballot. And if somebody comes in and spends a whole hell of a lot of money, they get duped. So, for instance, there's this story right now out in Iowa. Mike Cassidy, the gentleman who beheaded the satanic figure that was in the state capitol, that's Mike Cassidy, who came on the show running against Michael Guest in Mississippi 3. We had him on. He forced Guest into a runoff. And then Kevin McCarthy greenlighted an ungodly amount of money for a small conservative district in Mississippi to protect Michael Guest. Well, now Michael Cassidy is out there literally getting arrested for his beliefs, defending his beliefs, beheading satanic statues. And you have Michael Guest, who is the chairman of the committee, who apparently lets Democrats go for pulling fire alarms. So and votes for everything the deep state, the administrative state, the military industrial complex wants them to vote for. So there's very real impact from this stuff. And eventually Republicans are going to have to get wise to it as well. They're just going to continue to have these problems. Am I missing anything else here? I don't think I am. Listen, this is called trend setting. Okay? This is the aggregate average for Iowa. Well, it's the list of polls from the aggregate average from the Decision Desk and The Hill. All right, Decision Desk is handling a lot of people's. First of all, they provide us our data, so you know that. You can clearly see here you had ARC Insights, Fabrizio, except for Civics and the Iowa State poll. Everyone else very different. We had Trump at 51. The Des Moines Register then went from Trump 42, 44 to 51. Trafalgar is still at 45. And he put out a statement about why he thinks he's different than everyone else. It's not that different. You know, it's still a massive lead for Donald Trump. So even if Fabrizio and Trafalgar are closer, which I don't think they are, but let's say they are, all right, it's still within the realm. Misses in Iowa have been around 5-8 points. We're not talking about 25, 35, 40-point misses. That stuff is not going to happen. And if it does, I'd be very... What's the word, Laura? If that happens, it's sus, dude. It's sus. It's sus, baby. There's no way organization can evaporate a 20-something point lead. It just doesn't happen. So what are we seeing here with the Iowa poll? What we are seeing in the Iowa State University commentary they released with that, it was very clear. They think, Trump is consolidating the field, and that's where we're at. You know, if you look around, it's not just in Iowa, it's across the Rust Belt. Here is the Real Clear Politics, just list of recent polls here. Let's put this up. All right. As you can see, there's a whole lot of Trump and a whole lot of red. I posted this on Twitter before, and even for early polls, this is really significant. We've just never seen this. There's the Bloomberg round of battleground state polls. Looks a lot like Redfield. North Carolina is not a battleground state right now. Is it a competitive state? Sure. But it, along with Florida, is one of two to really buck the trend and go heavily Republican in 22. Kind of the red wave did materialize in those states. It didn't in elsewhere. It did, by the way, in places like New York even, but it didn't in some of the other battleground states where Trump has a lead right now. I think it's worth noting. When people talk about the polling misses in 22, which with the exception of a few, wasn't really that bad. The polls were not that bad in 22. They were close to, I think it's more of a misunderstanding about what people think they can expect from polls. Like somebody sent me an article from somebody on Forbes attacking me, basically saying that we had Laxalt up by 1 something round to 2, and that Cortez Masto won. So that was a bad poll. You're a statistically ignorant dunce. That's not a bad poll. And first of all, that poll was conducted 3 months before the election, 2.5 months before the election. That is a good poll. The sampling error is well 1 point something. She won by like 0.2. I think. And also what was in there? The Walker +1 and Warnock 1 by 1. That's a good poll. I don't, this is I think people just don't seem to understand what polls are and what you are supposed to do with them or glean from them. But in any event, we're not talking about that kind of advantage here with Trump. He's up and he's up everywhere in the general, let alone the primary, which is just ungodly leads. Nobody's seen these kinds of leads before. Get out of here. Come on. And I think it's worth pointing out that, for instance, in that Nevada poll, the Laxalt one, and in the Herschel Walker one, Herschel Walker was up by 1, but we had Trump up over Biden by 9. We had Laxalt up by less than 2, but we had Trump up by 10 or 9 point something. Laxalt losing Washoe by 8, which he didn't. He lost it barely. But Trump winning Washoe by 4. Laxalt losing Clark County by 5 or 6, something like that. Trump winning it by 2. Very, very different. And we are seeing this now with these battleground states. We're seeing a continuation of that. And I think that it's worth, I found it funny that the former president himself posted on Truth this article that I intended to read to you today, because it's got a lot of ridiculous, like, underhanded attacks against him. But I guess he sees right through it. He gets it, and he understands the importance of the actual headline itself. This doesn't appear to me, and it's in the AP, which is crazy. It doesn't appear to be an actual news article to me. What it appears to be is like a campaign planted narrative story, all right? Which a lot of that is, of course, what the media is. But let's read it. It's real short, and I wouldn't be surprised if this came from like a former DeSantis supporter who now is hoping Nikki Haley will be able to do something after Iowa. But it is important to remember what this headline says. Or not the headline, but the article will bring up. His opponents thought they would stop him in Iowa. And there's 2 articles I want to read. This is one of them, both left-wing organizations. Trump rails against opponents while urging Iowans to, quote, put big numbers up, unquote, in caucuses next month. He knows if he puts big numbers up, this thing's done. Trump on Wednesday made his 3rd trip to Iowa this month and urged his supporters to turn out in, quote, big numbers when Republicans cast the first presidential nomination votes in 33 days. Charlie Kirk and I just talked about this yesterday. The media wants a under 10-point win. The former president, who has remained far ahead of his rivals in national polls and those of likely Iowa caucus goers, pressed his supporters not to be complacent despite his front-runner status. We have to put big numbers up, really big numbers, Trump said, addressing voters directly in Iowa. He said again, we are leading by a lot, but you have to go out and vote. That margin of victory is so powerful. He gets it. He also insulted his rivals, and President Biden boasted about everything from keeping Iowa at the forefront of the nomination process to bringing back the phrase Merry Christmas, though he didn't offer details explaining when he thought it had gone missing. Are they friggin' kidding? I have to stop and just point out when they make these comments. Like I said, does this reporter forget how the words Merry Christmas were under attack when Donald Trump won in 2016? What was the first event in the Rust Belt that Donald Trump held after he won, but he had not yet taken the oath of office? Christmas in Wisconsin. 2 monstrous Christmas trees. I remember it like it was yesterday. Merry Christmas is here to stay. They want you to forget that Christmas absolutely was under attack under Barack Obama. They want you to forget about that. He vowed that if he won the 24 election, the economy would be thriving again by Christmas of that year. That would mean in 1 year, he would right the ship. And by the time the next Christmas came, because if he wins next year, he's not going to be in office by Christmas. Joe Biden will still be there. We'll still have to deal with Joe Biden's what appear to be pedophile-like Christmas decorating decor in the White House. We'll still have to deal with that for 1 more season. But he's saying by the next Christmas, when Melania will get to decorate the White House again, Laura, then things will be better. I just can't get over how bad Joe Biden's taste is. She's a horrible decorator. Though he faced a bevy of legal problems, including 4 criminal cases, which we have to get into at some point in the show, Trump campaigned regularly in Iowa throughout autumn, far more than any other early voting state for the nomination. Wednesday marks his 11th visit since September. His Commit to Caucus event in the eastern city of Coralville near Iowa City was part rally, part caucus 101. They were teaching people, new people, how to caucus. That is brilliant. Why? Because he is leading by an enormous margin, even bigger than overall, with people who say this is their first caucus. Melania today is giving a speech to newly naturalized citizens. Do you know what the theme of her speech is? Welcome to America. We need you to participate in the election to preserve the freedom you came here for. They know what we've been talking about for months. The new voter, the new immigrant. They're Trumpers. And they're seeking to tap that resource. That's smart. That's the Florida Republican way. That for some reason other national Republican party people just couldn't duplicate. That's how we do it in Florida. Welcome to Florida. Welcome to America. Here's a voter registration card. Congratulations on your citizenship. Let's get you registered. Did you know there's one of 2 parties here that want to turn America into where you came from? Don't rest on your laurels. Get registered to vote. About a quarter of the crowd, more than 1,000 people, raised their hands to indicate that it was their first time participating in a caucus. If our numbers are true, if the Des Moines Register is true, if Iowa State University, if we're all right, this turnout is going to be historic. And now they sit and wait for hours and then are notified that the plane won't leave and they have no idea when they will. That's what basically describes a country in ruin where free speech is no longer allowed and where crime is rampant and where once revered airports, those beautiful, beautiful airports, are dirty. Does anybody else travel? It's gross. Bobby Kaufman, an Iowa advisor to the Trump campaign, said on stage, that is an expansion of the electorate only President Trump can do, when a crowd raised their hand. I went out of order there. Sorry about that. All right. So with you at my side, we'll demolish the deep state. We'll drive out the globalists. He gave us, this thing here, right? I just have to correct the AP. First, they engage in this ridiculous nonsense that he's embraced authoritarian and violent rhetoric. These people are just disgusting. The AP is jumping on the assassinate Donald Trump bandwagon. And then the second part, they say Trump lost Iowa in 2016, foreshadowing the false claims of fraud he still relentlessly makes about 2020. He claimed Ted Cruz stole the caucus based on fraud and demanded a do-over. Excuse me, AP. Excuse me, Associated Press. Everybody knows what Ted Cruz did. Even Karl Rove went on Fox News to go over the math we outlined on PPD after the caucus in 2016 and to demonstrate that we are in fact correct. The dirty trick he played at Ben Carson's expense almost assuredly delivered him the caucus. Nice try. Did you get Bob Vanderplatz to write this? So here we go. So I wanted to bring that up. All right. So then there is, and I know we're running, it's 12:22 already. I'm trying to get through a lot of material because I don't want to blast past too quick. Let's just go right here. I'm not even going to bring up the other. Let's just go. Let's move along here. So will Iowa end the 24 Republican contest before it even begins? Make no mistake. If Donald Trump wins Iowa, listen, Donald Trump's going to be the nominee. I hate to break everyone's bubble. But if he wins Iowa, and especially if he wins it by a lot, then the media horse race is over. There's not going to be any horse, because Donald Trump did not do the Hail Mary, the Iowa Hail Mary strategy. He knows the caucus electorate, people of Iowa are changing. You don't have to burn your campaign down in the rest of the early voting states, if you're Donald Trump anyway, in order to win Iowa. Nikki Haley needs some kind of narrative like Trump wins it only by like 5 to 7 points. She comes in second, maybe even. There's a total collapse in support for DeSantis, and then they can try to like leap her into New Hampshire, which she's going to lose anyway, but get close as possible. And then she puts this gamble on Nevada that she's not even on the ballot for the caucus. But the state is also holding a primary. It's just that she and Mike Pence are on the ticket. So she's hoping they can manipulate the news into that being some kind of a win. There's no delegates awarded for it, but that's what they're hoping. I'm not kidding. Even though she will be crushed by the caucus. And then hopefully that gives her enough to get into South Carolina where she could pull off a miracle, even though Donald Trump is currently polling at levels that make South Carolina winner take all. I'm just giving you guys the heads up of what the plan is here. And then all of this between her and DeSantis was all in the hope that they could string this along until the convention when Donald Trump gets hit with a felony, and then they can argue that the delegates, in this case, are eligible to be unbound and that the party cannot nominate a felon. Otherwise, they will lose. So somebody else should get the nomination. Let's be clear here. That's what's going on. However, after extensive conversations with members of his legal team and other critics and skeptics who are lawyers, it doesn't matter if you're talking to people on the left or you're talking to people on Donald Trump's legal team, everybody appears to believe that no matter, these rulings this week all but ensure the DC case will not be decided before the election. In other words, the DC case, which had the most probability of slapping a felony on Donald Trump, which would have been appealed, but whatever. They were hoping they could put him in jail while he waits appeal. I mean, it's just crazy. That case will not be decided until the election is over. And it's very possible the Supreme Court junks it all anyway before we even get there. So this is a major wrench. And now I think Republican voters in the polls, maybe they just see this coming. I don't know. Can't wait to get in the field this weekend. Talk to people. I love talking to Americans. It just seems to me that the bottom is falling out of Biden. There's a couple things happening here. The bottom is falling out. If, anywhere near the Pew Research number is right, anywhere near right, the bottom is falling out, but it's more right now. The primary is a more immediate thing. It seems to me that Trump is really consolidating. I just popped up that Real Clear Politics list. I showed you the trend with the decision desk and the Hill in Iowa. It does appear that Donald Trump is consolidating. You have to understand we're 30 days out. Donald Trump is winning the late breakers in Iowa. Whether you're looking at the CNN poll or you're looking at the Washington Post now from Monmouth, when Monmouth is not a great poll for Trump, they dramatically understate him. Their Michigan primary vote is almost identical to us. They have Trump at 63. And hold on one second. Let me get our primary numbers up for Michigan too. They have Trump at 63. They have DeSantis and Haley basically tied around 13%. Christie at 5, Ramaswamy at 3, Hutchinson at 1. So it seems to me there's just consolidation across the board here. It really does. All right. So moving on here. For the last year, Donald Trump's primary opponents have been hoping Iowa would be the former president's glass jaw. Just over a month out from the January 15 caucuses, however, it's looking like reinforced steel. That complicates the path forward for his remaining opponents, who had been hoping that voters would grow more skeptical of his candidacy as the first voting neared. On Monday, the NBC News, Des Moines Register, Mediacom poll found 51% of likely Republican caucus goers in Iowa listed Trump as their first choice, up from 43 in October. DeSantis, meanwhile, sat in a distant second with 19 versus his 16% 2 months ago. And Nikki Haley remained in third with 16% of voters choosing her as their first choice. Vivek Ramaswamy garnered 5%, just ahead of Christie at 4. And by the way, the Iowa State poll is now Trump 54, DeSantis 17, Haley 15, Ramaswamy 7, Christie 4, Hutchinson 1. With the exception of having a few more points stronger for Trump, the Des Moines Register poll actually had Haley and DeSantis a little bit stronger than we did, a few points each. That one is right about where we have. It's kind of in the middle of us and the Des Moines, all within the sampling errors, within that range, especially, you're talking about confidence, all within that confidence. And that is very strong indication that is the lane, that's how the lanes are. They're set. The poll, which NBC noted, was, quote, the largest lead recorded so close to a competitive Republican caucus in history, marked the latest challenge for the non-Trump candidates as they work to convince voters, political leaders, and donors they're still credible contenders. For example, Haley only has a single endorsement from a member of Congress, Ralph Northam, Republican, South Carolina, and the polls show her down 35 in Iowa don't exactly make sticking one's neck out look more attractive. They go on to say the poll, the quote from DeSantis, the polls aren't accurate. They're never accurate. That's not true. That is not true. Iowa has surprised, but Iowa has never surprised by these numbers. Never. Andrew Romero told Semaphore for the article, Republicans know that public polling doesn't mean a thing, as we've seen most recently from the expected nationwide red wave that didn't take effect in 22. Again, the RCP average, our generic ballot, he wants to talk about the nationwide red wave, our popular vote projections were all correct. A point here, Republican +3, Republican +4, Republican +5. Those were all accurate. And everybody before redistricting was under the impression that Republicans still had a more efficient vote at the congressional level, even though I told you that they got their ass kicked in redistricting. So for him to pretend that accurate House votes, because it wasn't a red wave as people interpreted those generic ballots to be, is somehow going to translate into DeSantis closing a 35-point gap. This is insane now. An historic ground game that Ron DeSantis has built, and then he goes and touts 42 state legislators, 120 county chairs. The truth is, grassroots is a big deal. An organization is a big deal. So I wouldn't be surprised if he overperformed. But ground games can't convince people, folks, who tell you they're decided and they're not voting for you. Ground games don't eliminate 25 to 35-point leads. That literally has never happened, ever. A ground game could give Mike Huckabee an 8-point win as opposed to a 3-point projected win. A ground game can give Rick Santorum a less than 1-point win, even though Mitt Romney was expected to win by a few points. A ground game can give Obama a few-point win, even though Hillary was supposed to win by a few points. A ground game can give Bernie Sanders a 2-point win, even though Hillary Clinton was expected to win by 2 points. To pretend or to claim we have ever seen a ground game close a gap like this, as if, by the way, the Trump campaign doesn't have one too, is really disingenuous. The truth is, the Florida governor and the UN ambassador are getting their asses kicked by historic levels never seen in open primaries. That's the truth. $100 million later, to fall from 19 to 17% in the final 30-day stretch in your must-win state that you banked everything on, that you decided to support what is viewed by the general electorate as to be draconian policies in order to dupe the evangelical community in Iowa into thinking you're the religious, you're the moral, you're the virtuous one. Faith in God, Rich, is not don't give me that. I believe in God. I have faith in God. That's not what I'm talking about. I'll tell you what else I have. I have a Bible where if I was ever elected the governor of Florida, I wouldn't need to send my wife out to go get a Bible to be sworn in on because I didn't own one. So don't preach to me about religion, you faux ass Christians. I have one here that I read with my children and my wife all the time. My father-in-law gave it to me. It's very special because he also is a redeemed man turned to God. I would not have needed to send my wife or an advisor or anyone to go buy me a Bible. It's the only Bible thumper in the world who doesn't own a Bible. And Iowans can sniff this crap out, man. New Hampshire primary voters, they sniff it out right away. They smell, you know what, right off the rip. And by the way, let me just put this up one more time and point something out. When we came out with this, even though everyone ignored the Iowa State poll, when we came out with this poll, we were ones showing Trump above 50. All of the critics were using Fabrizio and the Des Moines poll, which you can't see here because it was in October, as a reason why we're wrong. Des Moines is the gold standard, not you, and they have him at 44. Okay. Trump's own pollster. I know. I've talked to them. I'm not the pollster. I've talked to people in his circle about it. Like, why are you different than our pollster? And I flatly told him, your pollster is understating new caucus goers and he's understating evangelicals. Sorry, it's right there. You can see it clear as day. Now, is it possible they don't show up? Sure. And then he only wins by 25? Sure. Is that what they're telling us? No. Is all of the evidence we have in, polling Donald Trump that we should believe people when they say that they're going to vote for the first time for him? Yes. Anyway, so the Des Moines poll is evidence, the gold standard in Iowa, that we're wrong. Then it comes out, it shows identical. Look at it, it's right there. It's basically identical. And the Des Moines poll's fake now. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. People just don't learn, man. It's like people have a hard time admitting when they were wrong and just to be a bigger person. Forget about even apologizing, Just stop the madness march. The evidence, bottom line before we go on to our next segment here, the evidence is very clear. Donald Trump is consolidating, moving ahead. I told you the consolidation argument was bogus this time. Harry Enton, we read his article on Monday to you. By the way, we may have a What Are the Odds on Monday. Barnes texted me yesterday, which, Laura, I forgot to tell you. I asked if I wanted to do What Are the Odds on Monday. So we may do that. That was the other announcement I was trying to remember. I just want to make sure, just hang tight. We'll make sure it's confirmed and really set in stone. And then we'll go. Either way, we'll have it inside the numbers, but I would love to do a What Are the Odds. Right. So there's that. And people should just, stop the madness march and admit it, and that's sad that people don't do that anymore. Speaking of which, it's a good time to bring in our next guest because people just don't. The God thing that I was just, picking at DeSantis over. This is the same thing with this Vince Vaughn character out in California 20. All right. Running to replace McCarthy, they wanted Vince Vaughn to run. They wanted Shannon Grove to run. And Shannon, who, by the way, had endorsed David in his run against Duarte last time. But she is no doubt a mentee of Kevin McCarthy. And I guess they got very bad feedback about, I just don't want to be Kevin McCarthy's toady. I don't want to be a stooge. So I'm not doing it. And that left the establishment scrambling, which is David in the race. Now they're just throwing a whole bunch of what against the wall to see what sticks. Vince Vaughn, who had claimed that God told him not to run, all right, he prayed on it, and God told him it wasn't the right time, has now changed his mind. I guess God gave him bad advice the first time around, and that was like a week before, and now he's changed his mind, even though he's very clearly breaking California law in order to do it. And then Kevin McCarthy endorsed him. So then we got these other people that they're throwing in there, hoping to fracture the field. And honestly, it could work to David's benefit. But the fake MAGA problem this year is a big deal, right? Because it's not just that these people are running; they're running and pretending that they are Trumpers. And somebody, by the way, in left field just yesterday jumped in Texas 12. The establishment is getting wise after 2020, after 22, excuse me. They knew they had this playbook in their back pocket. I think they just forgot about it during the Tea Party movement. And then they started inserting people, fake Tea Party, fake conservatives into the movement. And then that's how you got people like Ben Sass. All right. That's how you got all, I could go on and on. Adam Kinzinger. I kid you not, folks. These are all people who rode Tea Party sentiment into Congress and were lying. They were establishment posing as grassroots, and they're doing this to MAGA this time around too. And by the way, some of the people around the former president are giving him very bad advice, and they're literally, some of them are mean well, and they just don't, because I know this. They mean well and they don't know better. They're trusting people that they think were trustworthy in the past, and give me your assessment of so and so, and I'll bring it to the boss. They call them. That's what they call. They are giving the president horrible advice. And why does this matter? It doesn't matter if Donald Trump is reelected next year, folks. If we're going to see the same element in Congress stabbing him in the back and doing everything in their power to thwart him. Look at what the Senate is already trying to do. They're already trying to move, which I want to ask David about. And of course, I'm talking about my friend David Giglio. I'm going to bring on here in a second. The Senate is trying to move to prevent Donald Trump from dismantling NATO. Like, this is already happening because they know, or they believe that Donald Trump is going to win. So let me bring on David Giglio, ladies and gentlemen, running California 20. Buddy, thanks for coming on. I know it was last minute again the other day. I was like, hey, man, this is pissing me off. Can you come on and talk about it on Friday? Thanks for coming on.
No, thanks for having me. This is my favorite place to be. Got a little cold, so my voice sounds a little weird.
Me too.
I was in Bakersfield till late last night. Didn't get home till midnight. Spoke at the Greater Bakersfield Republican Assembly. It was a great event. People were really fired up.
I heard you rocked it.
Yeah, and a lot of what you say is true. Everything in this race, 2024 only matters. President Trump, he's going to win. I believe he's going to win. I think you now see that Congress, the people in Congress think he's going to win, which is why they did that yesterday. You're exactly right. That was to prevent Donald Trump from leaving NATO. And so they're even gearing up for a Trump victory. But it doesn't matter if President Trump wins if he can't get things through. Republicans are cowards. We see it all the time. We saw it yesterday with the NDAA. They talk a big game, but then when push comes to shove, they back down and they run away scared. And we cannot give President Trump another Congress, House, and Senate full of cowardly Republicans, people who pretend to be tough but are just all talk, empty suits. And Kevin McCarthy is the biggest example of that. And I'll tell you a funny story from last night that I was going to text you, but now I get to say it live. So I spoke last night, great reception. I went out in the parking lot after the event. This guy comes up to me and he goes, hey, I'm a childhood friend of Kevin. I went to school with him all growing up. And I thought he was going to say you were wrong about him. You know what he said to me? He goes, everything you said about him is exactly right. This is a childhood friend of Kevin McCarthy who's telling you that Kevin McCarthy is not a good guy. And I was like, my wife started laughing because it just goes to show you people can put on a public facade, but who they are, a lot of people know about it behind the scenes. And you're right. The president is getting a lot of bad advice from people who maybe they mean well, but the people that are giving that person the advice don't mean well.
Yes.
And this is key. Those people are no longer being paid by that person anymore. So they're not living. They don't have to care about Trump. Nobody in Kevin McCarthy's circle locally likes President Trump. Okay, that is a fact. They wouldn't be behaving in the manner they are in this race if they cared about President Trump, if they wanted his agenda to pass next time. Everything they're doing is to ensure that that doesn't happen, that he doesn't get a strong Trump supporter, and to keep their grip on California. And let's be honest, Kevin McCarthy is absent from the House, but he's not absent completely. He might not be there in body, but he's there in mind, spirit, and his money is there. So it's really the final battle, not just against Democrats. This is the final battle for the Republican Party. And this is what I said last night in Bakersfield. We
Yeah.
have to determine what this party is going to be going forward. Because if we let these people get away with what they're doing, they are going to destroy the Republican Party. And listen, I'm not going to cry tears for a Republican Party that doesn't care about its voters. I'm going to cry tears for the country, because the Republican Party is the only thing standing in the way of stopping the radical Democrats. But it's only if we fully embrace President Trump's his movement. And everything they've done in this race. Vince Vaughn, he is a well-known, even Rick Grinnell. Rick Grinnell knows enough to come out immediately and say, no way, you have made a lot of comments against Trump. They're not sure if Vaughn get it on the ballot, so the backup plan is the sheriff. Obviously, he's waiting in the wings to get a lot of funding. Then they just got everyone and their mother to get in this race now, because they want to split the non-Fong/sheriff vote and hope that we can't gain enough traction. It's a short primary. It's in March. It's one of the earliest in the country, but it's the most important in the country. If MAGA wins this seat, just imagine the boon for President Trump. One of his guys, a real loyal Trumper, takes the former Speaker of the House's seat as we go into the presidential election.
That's real change.
It's going to give him a lot of momentum.
Yeah.
And that's what the people in Bakersfield wanted. They're all about real change. They're frustrated. They've been promised a lot from McCarthy and his acolytes around the state for years, and nothing's gotten better.
Look at what they're doing, and I know because this is from your tweet, but then McCarthy gets all of his little local papers and little outlets that he leaks to all the time, which, by the way, I want to bring up. Here is, first of all, you were the first one in this race. All right. Before they didn't even put you in this thing, in this graphic. They didn't even note you in the article. Even though you're the one who is suing Fong to keep him. Listen, that was smart. And people are so stupid that were, telling, well, I guess just let it go. You can't let it go. You can't complain about Democrats and lawfare and abusing the law if you do it too. That's called being a hypocrite, and voters can't stand that. They would rather you just be whatever it is, even if it's not, even if it's unseemly. If you're honest with voters about who you are, like, listen, we're Democrats, and to us, the ends justify the means. Get on board or get lost. Republicans try to play like they're like fake moralists, virtue signals and all this crap. The truth is they don't do anything about election fraud, David, because they want to use it too to beat people like you.
No,
they don't do anything about lawfare because they want to use it too to go after people like you. They're full of crap. Until that gets removed in the party, it's like a cancer that is going to spread, and has been spreading. And if I'm telling you, if MAGA, which is you, because nobody in that picture is MAGA. Nobody in that picture is MAGA. If MAGA takes the former speaker's seat, it is symbolic. It's a huge, not just very real world win for America First, but it's symbolic. This is an R plus 20 more district. There is no reason to have a rhino like Vince Fong. And it's so disgusting because they're real careful about public statements they make against Donald Trump, but then they curse him behind his back. We told people this about John Duarte. They didn't want to listen. And now here we are. John Duarte has 8 advisors who have worked for him that run around because they left. They can't stand him. He's a terrible candidate. He's a horrible person, and they don't want to be a loser, so they left. And he's gotten his new team now, while the old team runs around and tells everyone who will listen how much he hates Donald Trump and how much he talks crap about Donald Trump. They're real careful about it publicly, though. So instead, you have to go around and find all of Vince's friends. And it took no time at all to find 10 people who love Vince Fong, who are going to work with Vince Fong, or supporting with Vince Fong, who can't stand Donald Trump. They hate his guts. It's all over their social media. They can't stand him. Liz, right, who the California Republican Party just endorsed, by the way, right? Liz, oh, man, we're going to have Biden and Trump again. The country doesn't even have a choice. Because she was a DeSantis supporter. Let's get real. We're all DeSantis supporters who were behind the effort to rob Trump of delegates by changing the rules. And that's another reason they hate you. If it wasn't for you, oh, it's true, David. If it wasn't for you, they would have taken those delegates from Donald Trump.
Yeah. And you want to talk about Vince, and Kevin's been very secret about, Kevin's always on TV. I mean, now he's pathetically begging President Trump for a cabinet job. Kevin McCarthy's been holding fundraisers for Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Tim Scott for the last 2 years for his local donors. All these same big local donors that won't talk to me because they know I'm a Trump supporter, and Kevin has told them, you are not allowed to donate to this guy. You are not allowed to talk to this guy. Those are the same donors that donated to DeSantis, held fundraisers for him, that are now going to flood their tons of cash into Vince Vaughn, into Sheriff Boudreaux. I mean, we got a sheriff who's their backup plan, who the LA Times, of all papers, wrote a glowing article about how this sheriff is from Tulare County, which Donald Trump won by double digits, but he doesn't believe in a hardline approach on immigration. This is a state, California, that's a border state. There's crime everywhere, homelessness everywhere. Illegal immigration is a huge impact on our communities, and we have a sheriff who thinks it's not his job to enforce immigration law. And that's their backup plan. But they pick these people that they think are going to be able to fool President Trump for better, They think they're going to get people to say, "Oh, no, President Trump." Kevin is he's a shyster. I'm going to say it. I don't feel bad about it. He's very good at manipulating people, and he's very good at making people think he's telling them the truth, because all he cares about is his own power, and he'll say and do whatever he needs to preserve that power. So he thinks, I'll just go to President Trump and tell him, no way, these people love you. They love you just like I love you, President Trump. And behind the scenes, all they do is they have parties. They make fun of him. I've been fighting this for 3 years. These people, they hate President Trump. California, you are not allowed to be elected in the state of California if you are a Trump-supporting Republican. The only people that are elected in the state of California are loyal Kevin McCarthy Republicans, given the green light. And it all goes back to the developers here, because that's what this is really about. The rich developers here buy these candidates, and they're getting a lot of contracts, and they're building a lot of things. They're buying up farmland. They're getting rich, and they just keep the people they've invested in office. And that was my message to the people last night. I said, listen, I am the only one in this race that is a true outsider that can sit here and tell you I don't owe any of these people anything. They've all lied to you for decades. None of them have anything. I don't give a crap about them. The only people I care about are the people who vote for me, and even the ones who don't vote for me and that live here. I'm going to go there, do what's best for them. And if these rich people don't like it and they want to kick me out, at least I accomplished something. All these other electeds have been there for decades. They've done nothing for the Valley. Kevin McCarthy had the biggest Republican delegation in decades, and he didn't even make water a top priority. Didn't even talk about it. And that's what the most frustrating part is, because a lot of these ag people are controlled by Kevin, and here I am actually wanting to help them, because they don't have much time left and they're listening to bad advice. And I hope that President Trump looks at this race and says, listen, I need loyal guys, because this is an important time. Like we said, President Trump, he has Agenda 47. It is great, but he's not going to be able to get that through with cowardly Republicans. Vince Vaughn does not believe on everything in Agenda 47. Mike Boudreaux does not believe in everything on Agenda 47. None of these other people do. And so you're right. They hate me too, because we blew up. They tried to screw President Trump out of delegates. And me and Laura Loomer, we went and we said, wait a minute, this makes absolutely no sense, because they tried to paint it as, oh no, President Trump wants this, right? And I was like, that makes no sense. Why would the president want to lose delegates that he's gearing up to win? Why would he surrender delegates?
I remember, David, when I got that call, basically because they have people who they think are loyal lying to them to their face. And they called and were like, listen, I just explain to me the delegate math. What is the deal with this? And there was no other way to interpret this. Like 3 months ago, when you thought Ron DeSantis was going to do better in California, you thought this was a good idea, because by district level delegates that aren't winner take all, if your district with Bakersfield, for instance, has more Republicans than the Bay Area does, but because there are more concentrated numbers of congressional districts in urban areas where more liberals are, they'll actually be able to rack up the delegate count by winning the liberal rhino areas. And then the Bakersfield, where there are hundreds of thousands more Trumpers, they get left out in the cold. There's still only 3 delegates, so that's it. 3 for them to 12 for the Bay and surrounding areas. So if you were a DeSantis supporter who thought DeSantis was going to win the districts around LA, the districts around the Bay Area and elsewhere, more liberal areas, that was the plan that you would want to put forward. David, they explicitly, when they sent the rules, like, look, we have no choice. They were explicitly leaving off Rule 2B. And I'm telling you, if it wasn't for you, that would have.
Yeah, it was like you could read it. Like, I'm not a lawyer. I could have been I could have given that to some of my old high school students. They would have read it, and it was clear as day. And they were.
But they excluded it.
Yeah, David. They literally would crop. They literally cropped it out of.
They cropped it out, David.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And like you said, they think that this whole plan that they're doing is genius. But I'll tell you what, one thing I felt really excited after last night. everybody wants to focus on the money Kevin's going to flood his candidates. I don't believe we ever have to compete with Kevin or his surrogates dollar for dollar because people are fed up. If I can raise enough money and get enough support to help me raise that money to just get our message to every voter, we're going to win in a landslide. Because people ran to me when I first went in the room last night. They said, "No," they said, "You're him, right? We just want you to know we've been following every single thing with this filing with Vince Fong, and we're ready. We're waiting to see what the Secretary of State does because this is bullcrap. He should not be allowed to run." They're angry, and they're smart enough to realize, they said, "Yeah, and the sheriff is the backup plan." They know it too. These people pay attention. They're upset. They've been dealing with the McCarthy machine for decades. And they notice that this is their chance to finally get real change, not just in their district, but with the state of California. The Republican Party in California continues to pat itself on the back over their midterm performances last year while ignoring the fact that nobody voted in the state of California. 50% turnout is not going to happen in the 2024 election. It's going to be a 60% turnout. So Democrats, independents, disaffected Democrats that were so angry with the Democratic Party, rather than embracing Republicans saying, maybe I'll switch my vote, they just stayed home. And this helped Republicans win by some razor-thin margins in a seat like John Duarte's. But if you couldn't get them to vote Republican then with your message in a year when it was terrible economic conditions and people were desperate for change, how are you going to do it now? They haven't changed anything. Rather than doing that, looking at the numbers and seeing the truth behind them, they're patting themselves on the back and they're pretending like everything's great. It's not. It's going to be a presidential year. You're going to have 60% plus turnout, maybe 70% turnout, because everybody gets a ballot in California. So you're looking at a really high turnout election.
And a lot less white. A lot less white.
Republicans are going to have to come up with a message that brings non-Republicans to the polls. Or not just non-Republicans. What's Trump's secret? Non-voters that don't always vote, but they come out for Trump and his message. The California GOP has no interest in appealing to those people. They're so desperate to appeal to the soccer moms in Orange County, and that's no disrespect to soccer moms, but there's not enough of them. There's not enough. And so,
David, Laura and I went out to California immediately after almost the 2020 election, and I basically gave this presentation trying to explain this to them. They completely ignored me. They wasted $15 million on a recall, investing everything in Orange and San Diego. When I told them the only votes you're going to get for that are out of the Central Valley, they laughed at me. Right, Laura? You were there. So were my children. They laughed. All right. And they thought it was funny. And they got their butts kicked in Orange County. They lost San Diego. They did not get yes for either one of those areas. Where did they get yeses? The Central Valley. In Stanislaus.
Larry Elder racked it up. I mean, Merced County, which was a Biden plus double-digit county, went for Larry Elder. I mean, but look at, they went for Larry Elder. They didn't go for the guy the CAGOP wanted, which was Kevin Faulconer, the establishment candidate. They went for Larry Elder, the America First guy, and
which is why they didn't support Larry. By the way,
they left Larry out to dry. They left Larry out to dry in the general. Yeah.
Let me just say this, because this is par for the course with them. This is their MO. So with Larry jumped over them, leapfrogged them, and Kevin Faulconer was their guy. They basically will tell you in California, do your dues, wait your turn. They want you to be like them, a career politician, that basically serves on the way up the ladder, because they feel like that's their goal. That's their career path. When somebody leapfrogs them, they get mad. And Kevin was their chosen guy. And so when Larry Elder beat him, they left him, it was obvious he was going to beat them. They left him out to dry, man. They just left him to
spend no money. Gavin Newsom spent millions of the Democrats. The Democrats spent millions once that was over. They gave nothing to Larry. And you just made a point. One, they think you got to rise up from, they told me this last time. Hey, we know we just shot you in the back. It's nothing personal, but maybe if you're a good boy and you go rise up from supervisor and you spend the next 20 years, moving up and kissing our butts, you'll be there one day. And I said, well, I have no interest in that. I don't want to be a politician for the rest of my life. And, last night, one of their other big things is, well, David, you're not born here. I had a former person who texted me, said, they're never going to support you. You're not born here. We don't care. And I talked to the people last night, and I was up front. I said, you know what? They're like, what are they going to use against you? And I said, well, one of their favorite things is I wasn't born here. And the people said, who the hell cares about that?
Yeah, they called you carpetbagger last time.
But these people at the Bakersfield Republican Assembly said nobody cares about that. They said, who cares you weren't born here? They said immigrants aren't born in the United States. Does it make them any less American or any less Central Valley? I wasn't born here. I'm choosing to be here. I'm fighting to save this area. There are people elected in office that have been here, that are born here. Yeah. They've been in office for decades. They're doing more harm than good. So it's always been a really ridiculous excuse. Really what it is, it's about the clique. It's about the club.
It's the clique.
And the more I've been in politics and learned, the status quo is all both sides of the aisle want to preserve because they're both making money off of it. And they don't want to solve the water issue. You know, Larry Elder's people told you the same thing that we figured out. There's no impetus to solve the water issue. Nope. Johnny Teixeira knows they don't want to solve it. I do, because I'm not bought and paid for. And
I spoke to Larry Elders, just to tell people, I spoke to Larry Elders, good friend. He also, by the way, is involved with a polling firm, which everyone knows. But, you know, he made the calls and he was like, look, we're going to try to put together this coalition. Larry really wants to tackle this. They laughed at him. They're like, you don't understand. We just use that as a campaign thing. Nobody's going to solve the water issue here. Devin Nunes joined Congress. He ran for Congress because of the water issue and then found out that there was never really any appetite to fix it. Even when Republicans, you could get some Republicans motivated. They just didn't have the power or the, let's be honest, the testicular fortitude to fight the Democrats and the activists, you know, to be able to get it done. They just don't, even though we've polled the area constantly over this, they overwhelmingly, they support green policies. They're pro-environment, but not above not having their basic water needs met.
Well, and that's the best part of my water plan is that it takes into account the environment. It's not only solving the water issue, it's also helping the environment. And that's the great thing about it. This is for every side. Nobody else has proposed that. You know, I am the only one who has it. And let's say this, you know, Devin Nunes, you know, he was a hero of mine, the way he stood by President Trump. And I, you know, doesn't he want somebody in there that he knows is going to be loyal to President Trump, that he doesn't have to go back and answer for and say, well, I'm sorry he did that. I'll have an intervention with him. You know,
it's not Vince Fung.
Help somebody who's going to go there that you're never going to have to worry about it, because I'm doing there because I believe the only reason I'm involved in this is because I believe that President Trump's vision for the Republican Party is the only way forward, because it's in the math. The data is there. That is why President Trump is outrunning Republicans across the country right now, in some places by double-digit margins, because his vision of the Republican Party wins. Their vision is going to cost us to lose this country to the radical left, and we are looking at permanent minority status. And so when I want to be there, so when President Trump comes to Congress, he says, we're shutting down the border, we're building the wall, we're leaving NATO, we're drilling oil, I'm not even going to question him. Say, you got it, sir. That's what we're doing, because that's what we ran on. None of this.
Okay, I would just want to stop you there and just say, you know, it's ironic about this. You had people like David Valadao and his dumb advisors thinking, you know, that Trump and Trumpism was so toxic, it's the only way they could survive. And it may have bought them short-term survival. But now, David Valadao, deep trouble. John Duarte, who can't stand Donald Trump, the only hope for John Duarte is if Donald Trump convinces enough Hispanics to vote for him, because this is another reason why they can't stand you, David. Not only because you didn't bend the knee, take the district, the supervisor or the assembly district or the state Senate seat they offered you. It's not just that. They wanted you to call those Hispanics in Merced that you canvassed, that you won, that 15 support came from Merced, Hispanics in Merced. They wanted you to contact them and tell them to vote for John Duarte, and you didn't. And by the way, I just have to say this, you know, personally, I'm glad you didn't. And I'm not a partisan like that. Had you told those people that you supported John now and it's time to get behind John, you would have been lying to them. You would have told all of those people that you brought into the process, this guy is a good guy. He's going to do this on the border. He's going to do this on, you know, he's more concerned about your wages than he is Ukraine. Like, none of that was true. So if you would have told them that, they would have held you responsible too for that lie, because you know what I'm saying? They would have said, David, you told us to support this guy, and he turned out to be like Dan Crenshaw without an eye patch. He turned out to be
worse than that, because he just doesn't care about anything. And let me tell you about you. You open the door, and I want to tell the story because we talked about people giving those close to Trump bad advice, saying that no,
Yeah.
these guys are loyal. Let me tell you this. You started talking about it. I know people that John is burning through staffers, okay? And these people that are working for him, they're younger staffers. They come from the academic, they're fresh out of college. They know people who I'm good friends with. They know people who talk to me, and they have been they're like, I couldn't wait to get off that campaign. John is all he does is say to us, go get me votes. And then we go back to him, we say, hey, you have no message for Hispanics. How are you going to get them? He says, I don't care. Go get votes. And all he does is badmouth President Trump. They said all he does is mother F President Trump behind the scenes. He hates him. He's a bad dude. And that's one of the reasons I couldn't tell people to vote for somebody I myself wouldn't have voted for. If it was a guy I was friends with, I believed in, I would have had no problem endorsing him. And you want to talk about Valadeo and some of those people, because some of those people are the ones that are now in the ear trying to get Fong endorsed. When President Trump was running for re-election in 2020, they sent a bunch of MAGA stuff and Trump signs to Valadeo's office. It got put up in the window, and Valadeo's campaign manager came in and said, take that stuff down. We do not have that in the window. They do not like President Trump. They want President Trump's money. They want his endorsements because they want to win, and then they want to screw him over. We cannot have that happen. We can sit here and argue all day long, but this is, if anyone supported by Kevin McCarthy wins this seat, it's not going to be good for the president. And, I believe that the president should he needs to throw as many darts at the wall as he can. Forget about endorsement records. Forget about how many wins. You need as many allies as possible. So the more people you back, the more you get through, the better. This is your final run. This is your final chance. This is everything. You got to win as many as possible, so you got to endorse as many as possible. Who cares if you lose some? Win as many as possible. This is an easy win for the president. R plus 20 seat. It's MAGA country. President Trump won this district by double digits. Larry Elder rocked this district. There is no reason a wishy-washy
even in the primary, David,
Republican should come from it. And so,
even in the primaries, winning it by like 30, 35 points or something like that. Let me ask you this real quick because we got to wrap the segment. But you just had this event last night, so it's just like a perfect question. And this is from Clover Girl. Other than the water issue, what are the top 3 concerns of voters in District 20? And you just were talking to them last night. So what do you think the top 3 concerns are in 20?
Well, President Trump has talked about day one. He wants to drill. And obviously petroleum is a huge issue. We sit on some of the richest oil reserves in the country, especially in Kern County. And so bringing jobs back to the petroleum industry and solving that issue is a big issue. And one of Kevin McCarthy's biggest failures is he didn't use his most powerful tool, the power of the purse, to force Democrats' hands, to say, we're not moving forward with anything unless you give us these concessions. So that's a big issue. Crime is a huge issue. My store is in Clovis, which is a great town, great city, one of the best in the state. And I've been robbed 3 times. And a lot of that has to do with the southern border. We have to secure the border. We have to close the border. Crime is huge. Drugs are huge. All of that in our communities in California is because we have an invasion at the southern border. And if you think a sheriff who thinks it's not local law enforcement's job to enforce immigration law is who you want in office, do you think he's going to support President Trump when he says we're going to send people back, we're going to have a moratorium on immigration? He's not. Vince Fong is not. That's a big issue. And one that's near and dear to me, because I know it's near and dear, is education. California is failing students. It's like 30% proficient in math and science. And people are upset. They recognize the catastrophe this is causing for their children. So I was a former teacher. It's always going to be an issue that's near and dear to my heart. I think it's an issue that's on everybody's minds, regardless of district in every part of the country, is the fact that their kids are not getting an adequate education. So there's a lot of stuff that I want to do, but the key is I'm not bought and paid for by the people who don't want it to happen. And those people are all going to flock to Kevin's people. We have to just raise enough money to make sure when everybody gets their ballot, they know who I am. Enough money to send out a couple mailers, run some radio ads, and I'm confident we'll win because this is America First country. They impromptu Trump parades in Clovis and all these places during the 2020 election. They love President Trump. When I said last night that I'm here for President Trump to fight for him, the crowd erupted in cheers. I'm actually going to get you that speech.
I found it interesting that you linked immigration and crime as a single issue, just the way Trump did when he went to Anaheim. One of the biggest eruptions he got was when he did that. He linked immigration and crime and then said, and guess what we're going to do to stop him? shoot him. And everybody was like, whoa. I mean, they went, because people are dealing with what you're dealing with. It's
Well,
not
yeah,
that
I
they
mean, I
want,
went.
to gun down people, David. It's that they know they need somebody to do
My
something and get
biggest
tougher. These people are not afraid to break the law.
my biggest memory from the last race was when I was in Fireball. Town nobody goes to for elections, small town, heavy Hispanic in Fresno County. Woman, she didn't even speak English. She was crying and through a translator telling me, "I'm just so glad you're here." She said, "Nobody talks to us, and our town, all they're just dropping off criminals in our town, and our kids are getting into drugs, and they're getting into gang violence, and nobody's here talking to us." And that's honestly one of the reasons why I decided to run again. I'll be honest, I got my teeth kicked in last time. They did a big number on me, and it hurt. It really upset me. It upset my wife. It put a lot of on us. We lost a lot. We were mocked, we were criticized, we lost, money, we lost everything. And at night, I'd sit up and I'd say, I remember those people. And I said, man, they were so glad I was there. I got to try again because those people need help. I didn't win for them last time, and I want to win for them because I want to help them. And she wasn't even a Republican, and she took my sign and she was a big supporter. So that's what still motivates me. And people could say all they want about it. The fact is, I'm confident if we have the money, we'll win this in a landslide. If we have the support, we'll win it in a landslide. I hope the president sees this. I hope he takes a serious look because I'd be honored to have his endorsement and I'd be honored to stand there with him and finish the job because this is about making America great again. This is about making sure President Trump's permanently changes the Republican Party. And you are right. There's a lot of fake MAGA in this party that get elected. I mean, Dan Crenshaw pretended to like President Trump. He got elected as a Tea Partier, President Trump supporter, and we all know that's not true. Those people are just good at getting money because they're getting funded by Kevin McCarthy. Look at Michael Cassidy, right? Michael Cassidy went to Kevin McCarthy. He would be in Congress right now if it wasn't for Kevin McCarthy. Joe Kent would be in Congress already if it wasn't for Kevin McCarthy. A lot of good people got destroyed by Kevin McCarthy because they were Trump supporters. That was the only reason. So
before the hippies on J.R. Majewski, it was close, David. It was a single point race.
Yeah, and it breaks my heart when people criticize JR and they say he's a bad candidate. JR was outspent by millions in a congressional race. Guys, $1 million in a congressional race is a huge deal. You're talking about a smaller area.
Stolen valor. He was pegged with stolen valor. That's a death sentence well, especially for Republicans. It's a death sentence if you get pegged with stolen valor. That wasn't true, but that's what happened. And when people went to go vote, that's what they thought. That was
he's been fully vindicated, and there's still people that are never going to believe it, and they're always going to call him that. And that's unfortunate. They ruined this guy's life. It's permanently damaging. And do you think Kevin cares about that? Do you think Kevin feels bad that he just did this to a veteran? He compared Joe Kent to Adolf Hitler. He put Joe Kent, a Green Beret, on a flyer next to Adolf Hitler. Do you think Kevin loses sleep over that? He doesn't. Doesn't. He's happy because he won. So we have to win this seat. We got to win. I appreciate you having me on, and I hope the president's watching. I hope his team's watching. And I'd say this to Devin Nunes. I'm your guy, man. I'd love to sit down. I'd love to talk to you. You'll never have to question where I lie. I'm going to fight hard for your boss, for you, and to get these people the help that you wanted to deliver them when you were in Congress. We can do it all together, and let's make the Valley great again, and then let's make America great again.
Tell people where to go, David, to check out the website. I do know just to tell people, the people who may have signed up to volunteer, I'm sure they're going to hear something soon. But he's been dealing with like lawsuit stuff that he's got to do. You had to do that. And you got all this other stuff going on. So, but tell people where to go, sign up, get to know whatever.
Every dollar counts. We're up against the McCarthy machine. The local donors, the big donors, the guys that have the money that fund the candidates are not giving me money. They're not answering my calls. They're never going to. They didn't last time. They won't this time. $5, $10, $25, $1,000, anything helps. So go to my website, www.davidagiglio.com. You can also go davidagiglio.com/donate to make a contribution. If you live in the district, volunteer. But even what I said last night, there's an option for you to host a town hall. I will come to your house. If you can get 5, 10, I don't care how many friends together that want to hear me talk. Let me come to you. Let me sell. That's how we're going to win this thing on the ground. So that's an option. Host a town hall for me. And then, like I said, we're going to do this together. This is an important seat. It's an important race. It means a lot to the country. And let's just win this thing. It's important. One thing that I left last night, I just know those people are ready for change. Bakersfield's been waiting for this moment for a long time. There's a lot of corruption down there. I mean, even the Fresno County clerk criticized the current Vince Vaughn should have never been sworn in the race. It's just ridiculous what they're trying to do. And I do want to say this. We cannot talk about election integrity, and then as Republicans, we have the most powerful Republican. He was the most powerful Republican in the House advocating for breaking election law. It's crazy.
Yeah, you can't do it. People know it. They hate hypocrisy. They would rather somebody. They would rather be somebody. They would rather somebody or some party be real with them and say things they don't like than to be fake. And that's the way. That's the choice Republicans are dealing with right now.
Before I go, I got to tell you the story because you texted me about the Trump blow up in my front yard. My neighbor.
Somebody popped it.
No, but it's funny. So my neighbor was talking to my wife. She brought over some Christmas cookies. And because somebody had posted a picture of my neighbor's yard on Facebook and said, "Oh, I love these Christmas decorations in the neighborhood." And Linda, my wife, noticed that our house was cropped out completely. They made sure they didn't have our house. And Betty was like, "Yeah, I didn't really want to tell you guys, but there was this group of 4 women. They were outside in the front yard, and when they were taking the picture, they were looking at your Trump blow up, and they were saying, they were complaining. They were saying, 'Oh, this is so inappropriate for the season. This is such an inappropriate display for the season.'" I said, "How's it inappropriate for the season? It's a Trump with a Santa hat on." I said, "Wait till I get my Bluetooth thing and I have it start talking to people. Then they're gonna." Dude, I'm waiting for the HOA. I'm waiting for the HOA to probably say something, but it's just funny. People don't have a sense of humor. But hey, let's win this. And President Trump's watching. Let's make America great again. I'm with you.
All the best, brother. Thanks for coming by. I'll see you soon. Okay.
Bye, David.
Bye, Laura.
Give Brooksy a hug for us. Yes. David Giglio, ladies and gentlemen, it's 1:14. I want to get to a lot of these questions. He doesn't need to match them with money. He just needs to raise enough where people know he's the MAGA candidate. They're going to flood it, and there are Democrats obviously are hoping that the race is so fractured that they can slip in there, because in truth, if it was like 2 Republicans and a Democrat, you may actually be able to just get 2 Republicans at the top as a jungle primary system. But Democrats are watching right now happily as, and Marissa Wood, by the way, she's a teacher. Last time she ran against McCarthy. They're hoping that things just get split like that. There's also an independent. His name's TJ Esposito. He's little known. And he's just running to be one of those guys who runs. But they threw all these people in there, they have backup plans, but Fung is McCarthy's guy. So listen, if the state doesn't throw him off the ballot, then Republicans are just the biggest scam artists in the world, and they don't really deserve the House at this point. I'm sorry. You're gonna be like, "Oh, well, what does that mean for the country?" Well, you're a partisan if you say things like that. What difference does it make? The other day, actually, I didn't tell David this or bring this up, but tell him I didn't bring it up. He knows about what I'm going to say. Somebody was venting. He's a donor and he doesn't like John Duarte anymore. And he never really liked him, but he supported him because it's like, hey, well, it's either that or Adam Gray, the Democrat. And this guy's just pissed. He's not giving him a dime. And he's like, no, there is no difference. So after all, there was no difference. So after all, you were right. And, so this concept of, but he's a Republican but this one is better than the Democrat. No, he's not. Adam Gray would have been almost an identical voting record to John Duarte. There is no difference. No difference. No matter how many interventions people call on that guy, he's always going to be a dirtbag. He's always going to be what we told you he was. And millions of dollars, unfortunately, covered that up, and now it's too late. So nobody wants to work for him, Laura, because they know he's going to lose. They don't want to be dealing with a losing candidate. And he has a chance to win, but nobody likes to lose her on the resume. He has a chance to win, but he needs Donald Trump to drag him over the finish line because he's just not appealing to the Hispanics that everybody said he would appeal to. He's Portuguese. His dad was this guy, and everyone knew him. Well, apparently there's a lot of love for his father and none for him. All right. So, let's take a real quick break. All right. We'll come back and we'll take as many questions as we possibly can. Something wrong with the camera angle Laura doesn't like. Hopefully she can fix it now. Look, recent clusters of respiratory illnesses in northern China and now outbreaks of what's being referred to as white lung syndrome in the US are littered across headlines right now, shining light on the need to be prepared for unexpected medical emergencies. With almost 90% of pharmaceuticals in the US being produced outside of the US, will you have what your family needs when the next crisis hits? Like we saw with COVID, countries clamped down on exports and stockpiles during this crisis, causes drug prices of drugs to rise and pharmaceutical shelves in America to go bare. This is already starting to happen. Not only that, will your doctor even agree to prescribe you ivermectin or a Z-Pack when you need it and ask for it? You guys have heard me talk about this before, but I'm bringing it to you again. The Wellness Company's medical emergency kit. It includes 8 life-saving meds like amoxicillin, Z-Pack, ivermectin to help keep you and your family safe in the face of natural disasters, supply chain shortages, or medical emergencies like white lung or COVID. It also includes a guidebook, like your personal little doctor in a pocket for safe use. In a time when over 40% of Americans say they would avoid a doctor or a hospital unless it was a catastrophic situation, the Wellness Company's medical emergency kit provides you a solution. Go to twc.health/TPP. Again, that's twc.health/TPP to get yourself that discount today. And I guess I can do it myself. Laura's over there messing with again. All right, grab your emergency kit right now. Again, one more time, twc.health/TPP. And that code TPP will save you 10% at checkout. Link is also in the description. By the way, TWC is founded by Dr. Peter McCullough, committed to supporting individuals through unforeseen circumstances like we've seen in this country in the last couple of years. The kit provides a solution to almost any unexpected disaster, from skin infections to pneumonia to COVID. Relevance to pharmacy shelves in America going bare, 90% again of those drugs are produced overseas. That's crazy. Again, I say it every time. I wish we would have taken the cue from COVID that we can't continue to do that. But thank God for people like Dr. Peter McCullough coming up and understanding the need for it and providing a solution. All right, so be prepared for the next unexpected event. And you can go to, one more time, twc.health/TPP to use at checkout. All right. Let's do a couple of questions and then we'll take another break in like 10 minutes or so. How's that sound? Good? Because I'm going to try to burn through them as quick as I possibly can. How is Trump polling so well in Georgia? Is the Atlanta metro shifting that far right? Sorry, I just saw that first, and even though Laura's like, "Hey, yeah, yeah, he is." Truth is, if you look at it, Tristan, look at the exit polls. This crap about Trump has the problem in these kinds of suburbs was always a load of you know what. It was always a load. All Republicans did. And Trump outperformed David Perdue in the Atlanta metro area. He outperformed even Herschel Walker, who had been polling stronger, and then kind of, $15 million will do that to you. Trump does better, not only obviously with non-whites than other Republicans, and he did twice. And think about this. Trump was polling twice as strong as Herschel Walker with African Americans. That's incredibly significant. And outside of the Atlanta metro area, why we did see a lead so big is, again, that central to south central part of the state where there are a lot of ancestral Democratic counties. Not only does Donald Trump win better margins, he gets people out that Republicans don't get out. So we were looking during that runoff. That was just a terrible performance by Walker. The first round was higher turnout, and you can see Walker was doing well. He just wasn't doing well enough, and a little bit more in some of those counties would have pushed him right over the edge. That's what allowed, Fulton to come in with their little last minute ballots all the time. That's what allowed them to pull him back down below that 50 mark, because Walker did almost beat him outright. And then, that last 10% in the Atlanta metro area always does Republicans dirty. With Trump, that's why this urban vote, this urban rural coalition that you're seeing is so important, because when you can slice 5 points off an urban county, it's an enormous amount of votes, an enormous, and contrary to popular belief, they can't just keep adding to the total. That's not how this works. That's how there's a very, very real misunderstanding about how they pull off what they pull off. The best thing you can do ever is increase participation. That is the best thing you could do. So let's go. Rich think low voter turnout in states like Arizona, Georgia, and Texas could ever be fixed and lead to big R wins with Trump in these states. Feels like there's so many white working class to reach. Absolutely. But actually, in Arizona, for instance, even Texas too, when it's Trump on the ballot, he gets this first time non-white participant. And that actually, my opinion, is what would lead to like big wins in some of these states. So like Texas by double digits, Arizona by like 5 or more. It absolutely is possible. And it's just not happening for Republicans because Trump is like holding the white vote from like 16 levels right now. His white vote margin is matching like 2016 when he won it by a little over 3. I think it was around 3 points in Arizona, I'm talking about. But also his Hispanic vote shift is shifted by double digits. So that's what can, so if he held the white vote, you're talking about 2.5, 3 point win. But then if you add that shift with Hispanics, then you're really talking about blowing that state wide open. And that's where it has to come from. And it would come from obscure areas of Pinal and Gila and stuff like that. That's where Trump is going to, by the way, you could see Kerry Lake actually she was very different. She got a weaker white vote share than she would have wanted, but her Hispanic performance was actually very good. In some areas, she outperformed Donald Trump. In some areas of Pinal that are on the border of Maricopa, she actually outperformed him there. Yeah, the NDAA. It's a perfect example. We're just having David on to talk about this. There you go. So everything they told you was a shiny ball that you should be happy for, they're going to wipe away. Anyway, a lot of it. How have, quote, enthusiastic voter numbers changed since 2020 election nationally and in swing states? Well, we haven't done it as comprehensive as we will as we get closer to the election, but I mean, I would say like across the board, there's very, very, very high interest and enthusiasm on the Democratic side is down. It's down considerably. Enthusiasm on the Republican side is still very high. And again, think about this. That's primarily driven by Donald Trump. His voters are far more enthusiastic, even in the states, when you look at state level polling. Ann Seltzer tried explaining this. The people over at, was it Redfield Wit, whatever it's called, they all have been trying in their way, shape, or form to explain that when you ask Republicans in general, how enthusiastic are you? And you get like 55% saying extremely enthusiastic. When you're looking at who those voters are, like 80% of them are Trump voters. So what happens if you remove those Trump voters from the equation? What happens to Republican enthusiasm then? Pence is still on a primary ballot. Didn't he suspend? Yeah, but because the statewide ballot in Nevada, he was registered to be on it. And nobody is using it for delegate allocation. So it's my understanding he will still be on that ballot. John Zaccaro, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you too, John. Thanks again for all you do. And thank you for supporting us. Keep the faith. Kind regards, John Z. P.S. Going to apply to Harvard. Ooh, because looks like studying and honesty aren't needed to graduate. Talk about the damaging the brand. Listen, John, I'll tell you this though, and Laura will tell you it as well. Like anytime we with hiring, that's one of my first questions. Like, obviously, where did you go to school? I would rather someone have gone to a community college and then work themselves up into a well-regarded state college and get their degree from there instead of hire somebody from Harvard or Yale because they are group thinkers and they're not capable of critically thinking. And it depends, of course, where it's coming from. But a lot of them that are that applies to us, they have like economics degree or some kind of Bachelor of Science, something like that. And unfortunately, they were trained and taught a certain way. And they don't they're not particularly good against they're not good with guarding against their own biases in their work. And I've had run into this problem before, and I'm about sick and tired of it. But it depends. I mean, it's still, I mean, anyone has a kid going to Harvard or Yale to get that degree, it's very prestigious. So you'd want them to do it. But I don't know that I don't know, Laura. Have you ever thought about this? Like, I don't know. I think we've taught our children well enough that they could go to a Harvard and still not be polluted. I'm serious. Their convictions are strong enough, I think. Haley's been endorsed by North New Hampshire, Governor Chris Sununu. How much of the governor's popularity is from Dems who cross over vote versus Republican primary voters? That's a really great question. The truth is, Chris Sununu was polling at like 6%. So here we go again with another line of crap from these never Trumpers and anti-Trumpers. This is a game changer. No, it's not. Neither was Kim Reynolds. Neither was Bob Vanderplatz. The truth is, you go against Donald Trump in this party and your unfavorability rating skyrockets. Look at the latest poll in New Hampshire, and then the one I was just looking at that it was Iowa. That was Iowa State. Not only that, look at the Monmouth poll with the primary in Michigan. Trump is the only one with decent favorability numbers. Everybody else is negative. They're negative because now they're branded as an anti-Trump, never a Trump. It is the party of Donald Trump. I hate to tell everyone, but that is something that these people misread. They thought that this party was like ready to move on from him, and they miscalculated terribly. I mean, some of these numbers are just so bad, guys. I haven't had where is it? That's the Democratic primary. Where are you? Here we go. Former President Trump, 75 favorable, 19 unfavorable. Governor DeSantis, 54 favorable, 26 unfavorable, 15 no opinion. Haley, 40% favorable, 29 unfavorable, 18 no opinion. Vivek, 31-33. Asa Hutchinson, 9-33. Chris Christie, 15% favorable, 60% unfavorable. Kim Reynolds, and Chris Sununu is going to deal with it too if he doesn't deal with it differently than Kim Reynolds did. Chris Sununu is going to tank along with Kim Reynolds like she did the very first time she started making appearance with the Florida governor. Sorry, that's just the truth. Everyone's like, oh, it's just uber. Somebody called her uber popular. How do you know the polls are fake? The uber popular governor of Iowa. She was only popular when Trump supported her, and she was thought to have supported Trump. You all don't seem to be getting this. That's why Ron DeSantis is now down 40 points in a state he won re-election by nearly 20. When you need a man to build you up into the person you are, what on earth makes you think that one day you can take that man on? You needed him to be the man you are. Jeez, it's illogical. Sununu has a lot of what Brian Kemp had. 20% of Democrats who do cross, but they're not, I'm telling you, they're going to do their own thing. And no New Hampshire Democrat, now slighted by the Democratic Party, torn their first in the nation status away from them. No Democrat is going to, not none. I mean, there's always some. But it's not going to be this monstrous operation that they're going to vote against Donald Trump in favor of Nikki Haley. That's just not going to happen. Although I know why, for people who don't know why Dreyer asked that. Sununu and Haley were outwardly appealing for Democrats to vote for them. And I mean, I'm not sure you can get enough Democrats to do that to counter how many Republicans and Republican-leaning independents you're going to turn off by doing that. You understand what I'm saying? So, like, great, maybe you bring in net another 5% Democrat support. You just lost 15 by pissing off Republicans. Grew up in Fresno. Wish I was there to volunteer for David. A lot of good stuff. Oh, and Dan. Dan signed up. He's out of state. So you're probably, obviously, Dan, people who are in state and in the area get prioritized. But, that's that. Yeah, I'm sure you'll get some kind of call soon because probably when it comes time to like phone bank and stuff like that. Right now, it's focused on donor calls, as most campaigns are. And, you could see people do that. But I'm telling you, It would have to be low dollar stuff because what he said is true. Once Kevin McCarthy tells people in that area to turn off the spigots, that's what they do. And sadly, when it comes to Trump donors, if you don't have Donald Trump's endorsement, they're not going to give it to you. Even if you're MAGA, they're not going to give you the money. And it's really stupid catch 22, frankly. It is. Because a lot of times when it comes to Trump, they want to see a certain amount of money raised, but they don't understand that the party that claims to like you, when they're in front of you, when they're in front of the president, they're kissing your ass. But then when you're not there, they're behind your back doing everything possible to screw people who would support you. So you got to realize that. And because otherwise, I'm telling you, folks, I'm not trying to poo-poo Republican voters parade here. I'm just saying you're going to end up with the same situation as 16 and 17 if you don't do something about this, right? So if Trump doesn't wise up, if voters, they don't need Trump, if they don't wise up, then I'm sorry, but you're going to end up with a Democratic House who's going to constantly do something to stab Trump and stop Trump. So it's going to be tough. And after what I saw in 22, Mitch McConnell and Daines, I can't fault him yet, but McConnell and the direction of the Senate Republican Congressional Committee, or the National Republican Senatorial Committee, they are terrible at strategizing. And I don't care if they have 20 something targets versus 8 or 11. I mean, they're horrible. They need a map that's favorable for them to even consider doing anything good. I'm sure Dave McCormick, for instance, is a great guy. But that's who they chose to really lobby to get to run. Why? Because Dave is loaded and he can self-fund. That is not, especially with Donald Trump on the ballot, that is not who I would have recommended you get to run for Senate against Bob Casey, who is a legend. His father was a legend. He's not, but his last name is legendary. People love the Caseys in Pennsylvania. Even a chunk of Republicans do. You needed a working class Trumper from Northampton County or Erie County or something like that, or Pike or Lackawanna or Luzerne. I mean, these people are just so freaking stupid. They get a rich hedge fund guy from Allegheny, which is great. Allegheny is actually a pretty good place to come from, but I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking like the son of a steel worker. Like look at Fetterman. Guy can't even talk. What do I think about Dems in office switching to Republicans? Some of that is real, especially in localized places. They're doing it to survive, and that's on YouTube. They're doing it to survive. Excuse me. We have Giulios in New Jersey, but it's not a lot yet. The problem is that you have the problem is rhinos that really are Democrats, and we just have come to call them Republicans. The party needs to be purged, man. Otherwise, why? It's not because I'm not saying that because of ideology. That's how messaging and branding works. You cannot constantly have these conflicts in your brand. It's like me, folks, one day calling myself the People's Pollster, then tomorrow calling myself the People's Pundit. And every day on Twitter, I just keep sharing one after the other, one after the other. If you are an outsider trying to look in, you wouldn't know what my brand is. Are they two different people? That's the problem Republicans have right now. And thank God, let me say this. It's a good thing for President Trump that the new people are looking at it like Trumpism, and that's it. Because they tend to not be political junkies. Once they get steeped into it and realize what a bunch of hacks the Republicans are, this is going to be a problem. It happened with the Tea Party. They disenfranchised those people and lost a lot of once Democratic voters who came over. Then the media branded them as extremists, and it was all over. And by the way, the media could never have been successful in branding the Tea Party the way they did without the help of the establishment, which Mitch McConnell gladly gave them. John Boehner as well. You want to get some of the quotes? We're going to bury these They're pieces of crap. Their time is come and gone. You need to take away their support systems, and then they will retire. Like Kevin. And Kevin's not going anywhere, but why? Because he still has all of these little tentacles. We call them congressmen. Got to get rid of them. And then Kevin will go away permanently. like Paul Ryan. Look at him. Mike Johnson. What the hell is wrong with you? You don't give a man like Paul Ryan any time. See? We have Giglio's in New Jersey, but then they run into the same cement walls here. I've read that Trump wants to turn New Jersey red. To do that, he would need a David Giglio's energy and commitment. Yeah, he would need grassroots. There's no doubt. I mean, I will say this though. Look at New York. That's coming from grassroots and the energy, like David's energy, MAGA energy. That's so that's Beth, 100% right, Beth. By the way, I remember years and years ago sitting in my office in Manasquan. Beth, back then it was Edward Jones, sitting there like, I think I'm going to run for governor in New Jersey. This was before I went crazy. And I knew John Corzine could be beat. I knew it. And Chris Christie had those kinds of goods. And it was like always Lonigan, the grassroots like Lonigan. But so you got to get everybody on the same page for it to happen. And Christie barely got everybody on the same page that year. He won. He beat Corzine by just a hair, a few points. He romped it to re-election, but that was after. I do think there's a lot of opportunity in New Jersey. I do, but so far they have not gotten the attention. There was a lot of young MAGA people who seized control of the failed institutions of the Republican Party in the 5 boroughs in New York. And once you saw that, then the energy returned, and they have the support of people like Elise Stefanik, and she's a warrior, and it's all coming together. I mean, it's coming together. So, the Republican gains in New York are real. And I actually think that there's a lot of opportunity in New Jersey. They just don't have that yet. They don't have that yet. How would you suggest a MAGA precinct chair poll their own issues? You mean like in your own precinct? Oh, that's simple. That's a good idea, though. That's ideas, not money on Getter. I could help you with that. Honestly, if you contacted me, if you have like events or something, you could give somebody a link. You could also sign up to one of these survey software places. You learn how to design the survey correctly. If it's a simple, like, hey, tell us what you're most interested in. I would do basic demographics though to make sure where you stand. But I could help you with that. I mean, it's very, very simple. Hey, send out an email blast to people you may have on a list, or if you're holding events, have a tablet out. Hey, do me a favor, click on this link. Here's your unique ID. There's several ways you could do it. There's actually a lot of, we used to do a lot of that stuff. Now, like we're doing the poll for AmeriFest, for Turning Point. Everyone's going to get a URL. They'll have a unique ID. We'll email people, hey, you're participating in AmeriFest, take the survey. A lot of times, we'll also do this, which if you've been to like a CPAC or something with their straw poll, you would see that maybe there's like a line of like 10 tablets or something. And if you are a registered guest and you qualify to participate in it, you put in your email that assigns you an ID, so we know you're a different person. You're just taking the survey a million times. There's a lot of different ways. I mean, I could help you with that if you want. But the easiest way, if you're talking about a precinct chair who has maybe 50 people show up at a meeting or something, or if you're doing events in your area, in your county, for instance, or in your precinct, and then you can always tell people, hey, do us a favor, visit this, and you could take a look. You can get a, that sucks. Those are tax everywhere. You could get a Q code once you're done doing the survey. And if you're meeting people, you're like, hey, scan this Q code real quick. And, that would take them, hey, take the survey for us. We'd love to hear your thoughts. A lot of people still do it by mailers. I mean, the Republican Party still sends you stupid mailers. That's just totally a waste of money and outdated. Totally a waste of money. Archaic, man. Come out of the Jurassic period. Christ. Lord, forget. All right. +1 on the U.S. airports are dirty. I was on JFK Airport this summer, and having been there in 15, it was a very sorry state. JFK is in bad shape, isn't it? And it used to be a joke because it was like Newark and LaGuardia, right? Now, actually, some parts of LaGuardia didn't look that bad, Hector, but JFK used to be beautiful. It used to be the nice one compared to LaGuardia. Jerrier, I donated to David and a bunch of other America Firsters earlier this week. Time to put up or shut up. Good for you, Jerrier. Good for you. And I'm sure if David were here and I would have read that out loud, he would have thanked you for it. Have you seen the Rasmussen poll? 20% mail-in ballots in 2020 were illegal. You know, I always like get a little bit skeptical of those. The findings are significant without a doubt. For people who don't know what he's who's that, Bud? Nope. Chivalrous Savage on Getter. Chivalrous Savage, we have got to bring that up because for people who did not see it, hold on, let me sign in before I share it with you guys, okay? Is it already signed in? Maybe. Let's wait. There it is. 1 in 5 mail-in voters admit they cheated in the 2020 election. This is just a very significant poll. All right, it's I don't know that it's like, remember, there are sampling errors, but it doesn't matter. The fact that people would admit this is stunning to me. Hold on. I don't want to step on a nail. Hang on. Oh boy, Laura, I knocked all these over. Be very, very careful. I know, I'm a disaster waiting to happen. You know why I need more Yankee bean soup? It's because I'm klutzy because I'm not feeling well. I'm not as bad as everybody else is. Dealing with it. I'm living, but I'm certainly not 100%. Oh, stepped on it. Yeah, be very careful because they're hard to see. So be careful if you come on this side of the studio. You could definitely get one through the foot. 1 in 5. More than 20% of voters who used mail-in ballots in 2020 admit they participated in at least one form of election fraud. A new national telephone and online survey by Rasmussen Reports and the Heartland Institute finds that 21% of likely voters, U.S. voters, who voted by absentee or mail-in ballot in the 2020 election say they filled out a ballot in part or in full on behalf of a friend, a family member, such as a child or spouse, while 78% said they did not. 30% of those surveyed said they voted by absentee mail-in ballot in the 2020 election. 19% of those who cast mail-in votes say a friend or family member filled out their ballot or in part or on their behalf. Furthermore, 17% of mail-in voters say that in the 2020 election, they cast a ballot in a state they were no longer a permanent resident. All of these practices are illegal, Heartland Institute officials noted. And Justin Haskins said the results of this survey are nothing short of stunning. The change of address flags after 2020, actually even before 2020, when they were doing universal mail-in voting, this unsolicited sending of ballots is a major problem because you're sending out ballots that no longer belong to people who are in that residence. If you have 4 years of telling people that a guy is Hitler, when they get this, okay? When they get this, it's California. Those are official ballots. They do not belong to the people that live there anymore. Then you're not a criminal breaking the law by filling in that ballot and sending it in and forging someone's signature. You're a hero now. You're stopping Hitler. You understand? It's the same way, same social bias that they use to convince nutcases to shoot Steve Scalise. And what they're doing now, everyone's seen the montage by now. That is a way to tacitly push somebody into doing something horribly evil. It doesn't surprise me that 17% told Rasmussen that they filled in one of those ballots. It honestly doesn't. And after what we found in Michigan, Jocelyn Benson, you know it. That's why you started deleting stuff, trying to hide evidence. Even I was banned off of Twitter when Jim Jordan released a couple of weeks ago that spreadsheet showing the post-2020 efforts to ban people for all this stuff. There's on that spreadsheet, there's the claim, who did it, who spread it, who originally shared it, started the claims, who shared it and amplified it, what it is, what category they put it under, and then there was a review section. In the review, they did not dispute at all that the records we shared were in fact people who were not eligible to vote in the state anymore. They didn't dispute that the public website we showed people as a resource where they could check what we were saying was in fact returning the information that we were claiming. They didn't dispute any of it. They did not dispute the veracity of the findings, even though PolitiFact tried to bury it and lie about it. And by the way, Snopes, above all people, were the ones who came to our aid. There is no doubt with the kind of numbers Laura and I saw, you're going to be able to explain some away. Some are going to have logical explanations. Some's going to be a mistake. But government officials don't start deleting things when they're honest mistakes. They delete evidence when they've been caught in criminal activity. Anyway, the results of the survey are nothing short of stunning. Yep. I don't want to spend too much more time on it, but I did think we should bring it up. I'm not surprised by it, Chivalrous Savage. It's tragic. But I will say this. Thank goodness, at least in many of these states, not all, there have been some things like in Wisconsin. Michigan is still a hot mess. There's no doubt. Your hot take on yesterday's Pew poll and implication for Biden. Now, all of a sudden, Bud, everyone's starting to realize, this is from YouTube, Bud on YouTube. Now, all of a sudden, everyone's starting to realize how bad that Pew poll is for Joe Biden. That's over 5,000 responses that they did for that Pew Research survey. Joe Biden's approval rating is at 33%, and his handling of things like, what do you think about his handling of this, that, the other thing, is atrocious. It is really, really bad. All right. So you cannot win real life. That is the bottom falling out. Yes. I think somebody had said this is the bottom falling out. It is. Yes. And that's why I can't wait to get the Christmas poll going this weekend, which we're going to do. I can't wait to share the results of it with you guys next week. I want to know if we're there. I think our low for Joe Biden was like 38%, something like that. It is very difficult to get a president in the mid to low 30s in this day and age because we're just a very, 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 we're a very partisan split country. And here's ours right here. Actually, I can show it to you right here. Put this up while I'm reading the rest. But if we do find Joe around 37 or below, it's a major problem for Joe Biden. I mean, because you can see where our trend is here. And again, we are trying to show the more realistic take on things. Interesting about this poll too that we're doing. Remember, we are going to have vote share higher in one of the options because we're also polling Trump v. Biden head to head without the someone else. Just, I would not vote and undecided. That's it. Then in the next one, we ask, what about a generic someone else? And then after that, we're going to give them the full ballot. And we were doing kind of like what we did before. What about with just Kennedy? What about with just West? What about with just Stein? But the truth is, there aren't many states where Robert Kennedy is going to be on the ballot, but Jill Stein isn't. The truth is, Stein's going to be on the ballot in places where Kennedy isn't. So we thought that, we are only doing that for the simple point. Right. So what we did instead was we did Kennedy with the lean also, and then a generic third, someone else. And then instead of going, well, what about just with West? What about we just did everybody after that? Kennedy, West, and Stein. All right. And that's why it is such a large survey. We have candidate loyalty on there as well. I would vote for another party. I would consider voting for the other nominee. I may vote third party. I would write in so-and-so if they're not the nominee. We need to really start gauging, even if it means bigger surveys, what the electorate is going to look like. Yes, even 11 months out. Sheila Jackson Lee is 73 years old and just got her ass kicked in Houston mayoral election. Oh, man, she got blown out. Since she is a total Democratic Party stooge, do you believe they may retire her as her district and Houston is turning majority Hispanic in demographics? That's a great Blondie. That's from Locals, Blondie. Um, that is a fantastic question because I do. After seeing how, and if you look by county, after seeing how she performed in all of Houston, she only did well in the majority black precincts. She got thrashed by a white guy with the majority Hispanic areas. So they're going to have to find something else. She's a mean person. She's a horribly, I'm going to say it. She's borderline evil, that woman. She's a terrible person. She's long been known to be abusive to her staff, people around her, apparently, including some family members. No, it's bad, Lord. She's a horrible person. And it's tough. Right now, Houston has no ethnic majority, 39% white, 40% Hispanic, 16% black, 5% Asian, and other. Estimated 1 million illegals now in Harris County. The demographics are changing. I do think you're onto something there, Blondie. After that election happened, we had a book club and we were discussing this just a little bit. And that's, something we all were floating. Like, is it possible for her to survive in this district? I'm not sure anymore. I'm really not. Do you know if there are any political aspirations for Eric or Don Jr.? Tired of career politicians. I don't know that, although I am telling you right now, before Ron DeSantis ran against Adam Putnam, I was suggesting to Don Jr. he should consider running for governor. I thought, especially earlier on, I thought that Don Jr. would be a hell of a political figure. And then he got very unpopular as they attacked him, but that was over the Russia hoax. They put him at the center of the Russia hoax, which everyone knows now is a hoax. So he has a chance to redo his image. I do think that, he could have a future. Rich, can Trump do the urban coalition in Detroit? He pardoned the former mayor, Kwame Kilpatrick. Yeah. And if you look at how he performed in Detroit in 2020, it honestly wasn't that bad considering. Hold on 1 second. Let me pull the poll up too. Do I have the other poll? Yeah, let's just go backwards like this. And then if I go like this, we'll be able to see. Hopefully it does load. Something's going on with this. It's loading slowly. All right. So if we look at the Southeast in general, this, of course, is the Detroit area. I mean, you can see he's losing, obviously, but he's not doing horribly. And I'm telling you, that is almost assuredly not white educated voters who live in the upscale areas. Those are outside. I mean, even part of Oakland and Macomb have them, even though Macomb is more working class. But in 2020, for instance, Trump still did he pretty damn good. He got 30.33% of the vote in Wayne County. And for a Republican, that's not that bad. If he gets 33, 35% in Wayne County because he's doing that much better with black voters, folks, it's a wrap. Then all of a sudden, our Michigan +4 and +5, +3, with the different levels of who's running, doesn't look so crazy anymore. Now, CNN's Trump +10 still sounds a little crazy to me. But I know why they're getting those numbers. Because if you go through CNN's poll, by the way, and where was Bloomberg? Morning Consult. He's up even in Michigan now and that. And they have him up by 4. See? 46-42. And then with Kennedy, West, and Stein, it's 39-35. So there you go. And even Wisconsin now, Trump is up pretty big in Wisconsin. We had him up by what? It was close, right? 2? Something like that? 2 or 3? I'd have to go back and look. You know what? Let's look. Let's see where we compare to other people, in fact. Hold on. Let me take this away. This is Wisconsin first, but I know you asked about Michigan. I'm curious about something. And I'll go to Michigan in a second. I'm just curious where we stack up with everybody else. Public policy polling. This is everything, though, not just the race. There's the ballot test, public policy polling. Where is the mayoral favorability? What date is us? December still? There we are. I love how they brand it, Laura. I love how they are doing the brand. The Badger State Battleground. Yeah, man. That's how it's done. I'm looking to see where did they do the presidential. There it is. So we had, okay, it was closer. In our polling, it's closer. All right. So, but Bloomberg and Morning Consult around the same time, they had Trump +1 too. In the head to head. We had Trump +1 in the head to head. Yeah. So it's big other. That's why we're doing what we're doing this time. And then they had Trump +2 in the bigger field. And we had Trump +2 in the bigger field, Trump +4 in the full field. Interesting. Did they the full field too? Yeah, they were. Well, no, they weren't because they didn't have Stein in there. They just had a generic other. Of course, Stein got nothing in this. Damn. Thought that would be a better state for Stein. I guess not. And that's awesome decision desk that you guys have putting the name of the poll in there too. That's awesome. I love that. Everyone's got a brand. This way you know it's us. Not sure if you want. Okay, hold on. I'm not reading this out there yet. If you've heard of some new AI political campaign caller system called Civox, I was wondering how impactful AI persuasion like this will be in 2024. That one in particular is not as robust as the one that we have been using. And these, when they're right, though, and it's a great, who asked this question, Laura? I don't have that person's, commenter. Is that generic commenter? Oh, drive-by commenter. Okay. This could be the use of AI is going to revolutionize political campaigning. It is. We honestly, I really believe this, guys, because I'm so blown away by what this AI can do. I feel like we have BC and AD, and we're going to have BAI, AAI. I think that's how big AI is how much AI is going to change the world. And the political implications are huge. And that's why when it came especially to polling, there were a lot of ethical questions because people need to know they're not being misled or duped in AIs. When it comes to polling, I had concerns about even if it's unintentional, injecting biases and different things like that. But I'll be honest, pleasantly surprised, but blown away and a little scared because, even my son, one day he was working with me. I still had work to do, and he saw it in action, and he was like, "Oh my God, this thing sounds just like you, Dad." It's like mimics you. Like it's like 1,000 people's pundits interviewing people at once. It's crazy. And it does sound a lot like me. Not a lot. It even uses the word folks. Like, it's weird, Now I know why those friggin' losers are spending that much money on sex bots, Laura.
You just so went there. Okay. I was just going to say about the inflections, like how you say things and how it's crazy. It's creepy, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Don Jr. said on his show last week he may consider VP now if necessary. Himself? Would that be not a great idea? That's not a great idea. With his dad at the ticket? No, it's not a good idea.
I thought that was hysterical.
That's a bad idea.
Well, they would.
He might have been joking.
I think he was being.
He must be joking. Yeah. Now I know he's going to be the defense against a Haley. I blew. Boy, that took like 2 seconds to go viral the other day, huh? You guys see what I did on Jack? People were like, "Oh, he said it." And they're like, "What about Trump picking Haley?" I said, "Yeah, if he wants to be assassinated." Everybody was like, as soon as we got to commercial break, Jack was like, "Oh, that's gonna be something."
Yes, he did.
And it was immediate. It was immediate. The headline was immediate.
Birthday.
Barris, Trump will be killed if he picks Nikki Haley. It's like not exactly how I said it, but yeah, he will be.
Speaking of Jack, today is his birthday.
Removed. Yes, happy birthday to my boy Jack Poso. It is his birthday. Happy birthday to him. Blessing, wishing many more blessings, many more blessed birthdays to come in the future. And let's see. When I see Liz Cheney talking about running as independent, I start to think it should be kind of hard to get on the ballot. It would be hard for her to get on the ballot, even if she ends up with no labels or something. But I'm telling you, if you're a Trumper, you want Liz Cheney on the ballot. Ooh, excuse me. You would want Liz Cheney. Because no one on the Trump base side, even Republicans, going to vote for her. She's going to take college educated, even Republicans. Let's say there's like 7% crossover. She's going to pull from them. And then they, otherwise may have been inclined to vote for Biden. She is not pulling from the Trump vote at all. Sandy, question on AI and polling on political campaigns. Doesn't the AI need to be trained? Yes. Doesn't this mean you have to feed it the right data? You can share with it, and I'm sure, I don't know how everyone else's AIs work, but it already studies prior campaigns. And by campaigns, I mean, like, we start a job on the software. A job is a survey, it studies the prior ones, and then it'll suggest certain kind of like template back and forth, and from there it reads how you interacted before, what you may have said in response to something before. Well, first of all, it immediately determines whether or not it's a positive or negative interaction on the phone. And if it's negative, it's just like, hey, we don't have to bother you, and we can, remove you from the list, but we only need a couple of minutes, whatever. And if somebody says go, suck it, then obviously it's put in a negative interaction, and that person's put off and gone. And what's awesome is that we won't call them again, if we don't want to. And then beyond that, it's already seeing how you interacted in prior surveys and jobs, and it trains very quickly, very quickly. And I still have it, even on mine, Sandy, I still have it set that I don't want it to automatically do things without a couple approvals. So it'll immediately ask me, like, listen, would this be for this comment? Would this be an appropriate response? Is that okay? Do you want me to go this way? So every single one, I'm still feeding it and training it, because I don't have it set to just default do it immediately, even though it could. At this point, it could already, but I don't want to. So every single campaign, it's getting smarter, and it's training every single time. So it's getting, I'll be honest, I mean, it needs almost no direction at this point. It didn't take long to get to this point. Now, where it's going to get a little bit more confusing, which is cool, but still is whether or not it knows we're conducting a poll, or if this is like a get out the vote call to action campaign. We don't work for candidates like that anymore. So it would probably be a challenge, but I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. I suspect it would immediately recognize the difference, and it would just go to town. I really do. We just haven't been doing a lot of that work anymore. We have done it and used it, and I've seen it, and it's incredible. But at this point, I actually started using it for polling secondary to something else, because I was afraid. Like I said, I thought there was I wasn't afraid. I was just concerned. It was not going to be. I got high standards when it comes to conducting a poll, and I just felt like it was really risky, and it ended up not being risky. So, any candidate those of us in New York 3 should keep an eye on for February special election. You know what? I would really like to talk to like Gavin about that, and then get back to you. Maybe we'll have Gavin Wax on to discuss this, because the Dems have already put forward Tom's, and he is corrupt. ASS. Yeah. Let's put that on the calendar, Laura, trying to get Gavin Wax on or something to talk about that race. I think he'd have some insight that's good for people there. Maybe even ask Alex, Ali Stefanik's campaign guy, if he wants to come on and talk about it. That would be a good person to have on as well. I don't know if they're getting involved in it, but we'll see. But I'm not there, and I haven't had a chance to really dig into it yet. But I will. It's good. It's a good suggestion. And I think that's it. So with that in mind, yeah, that's where we're at here. Oh wait, problem in South Carolina is I have no option to Lindsey Graham. Not yet, Wade. Not yet. Last time Lindsey would have been done if Trump didn't save him, and that's why he's got his endorsement. I don't know that Trump's. By the time he's up again, it's going to be a while. So, you're going to have to deal with him for a bit. I know it sucks. Question: is the Powerball rigged? Or poll question: is the Powerball? Barnes and I have done stuff like that before. Norm, remind me. You know what? I'll drag it up next week. We've done things like that, and most people. It depends. It depends on the state. Yeah, it depends on the state. Most people do believe it's rigged. Yeah, a lot of people do think that it's not legit. That's interesting. That's funny. Good suggestion, Norm. That's funny. Why were we even doing it? We were trying to gauge what's the word? Cynicism, anti-establishment feelings.
And how you trust a certain system.
Yeah, the system, right. Their feelings toward the system. Exactly. All right. So with that in mind, it's 2:10. Don't forget. Keep your eye out for the beginning of we'll drip some stuff with the Christmas polls. Things could pass. Locals will shoot you a copy of it so you can see what it is. It's like I said, it's gonna get big. So obviously we couldn't include everybody's questions, but there's still some real fun ones on there. And what am I missing, Laura? Anything? No, right? No scheduled times to be on anything. Well, we already talked about the straw poll for AmFest. That's going to be cool. But yeah, that's about it, I think. Yeah, keep your eye to it. And of course, share the public polling project far and wide. Special guest, David Giglio, thank you for coming on, especially last minute. And thank you to our supporters and advertisers like the Wellness Company and Jam and Bean, which we didn't put up. Don't forget to go to jamandbean.com, get a gift before it's too late for your loved ones. Use the promo code TPP40 on a new subscription to get 40% off. Doesn't matter whether it's coffee, popcorn, whatever your subscription is. Get 40% off, and every month it'll still give you 10% off on every renewal just from using that code. All right. So with that in mind, we're going to kick rocks. Laura, anything you'd like to say before we go?
As usual, have a very happy and blessed weekend. And above all, deuces.
Deuces. See you guys later. Don't forget the Christmas bowl. Share farm wide.